know how to edit this thing?
Nope.
Cool, I guess I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a way.
Oh! There's well! God damn it! Fuck that stupid line, man.
Edit again.
Okay, I got it.
Come down with fire, lift my spirit higher. Someone screaming my name, come and make me holy again. I'm the man on the silver mountain.
Hi, my name's John Schreiber, and I do vocals for Legion and the Thieves.
Hey, my name is Felix Armstrong. I do guitars and singing for Legion and the Thieves.
And everything else.
And everything else. These songs came together over, believe it or not, many years. I spent some years in the Florida Department of Corrections, and I played in the prison chapel band. And the only time I would have to play would be during the sermons, very quietly to myself, off in the corner, sort of putting the guitar neck up to my ear, listening, strumming, very quietly, just trying to barely hear it and not disturb anybody. And that's really where the songs came together. So, you know, maybe 20 minutes a week, you know, stressful minutes, you know, so it took a long time to really get anywhere. So I fought for these songs and the chords, and then upon my release, I got back with John, and he started putting some words and themes to the chords I had written.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised how quickly the songs got back to me. I don't know what we say, it's about less than 2 months after you got back. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like shortly after Peter got back, he just got to working on the songs. Like kind of right from the get-go, he seemed to have a pretty cool vision for it, and he started sending me songs, and I did my best to kind of come up with a theme for the lyrics. I wanted it to be a little bit different than what I was already doing, and that was kind of the first step. I mean, he was turning out songs quicker than I could come, or well, he was coming up with the 4 that we had. He came up with at a pretty surprising pace, and I was just coming up with like themes, and I was like really like wanting to kind of go for it on an RC side with it. I wanted it to mean something to me, but I wanted to kind of paint a picture, I guess you could say, and which I've never done that before in any project I've ever been in. So that was really cool for me, and the music's just interesting. Like it's not like it's kind of black metal-ish, but it's not black metal. You know, it's definitely got the I mean, I don't know. Like, what would you say?
I would say it's forward-thinking black metal. Because, you know, if anybody thinks it's 1993 in Norway, it's not.
No, it's 2016 in Pensacola or Fort Walton Beach, Florida. So
yeah, so
it's
we're not clinging to the past. We're not trying to pay homage to the past. We're looking forward. We're taking everything that we liked from then, everything that's come out since, and then various other influences.
I was gonna say that's one of the neat things about these songs is, while they all have a, sort of musically a reoccurring theme, like there's little gems of all kinds of different genres and subgenres that are in there. Even with the vocals, like I didn't just stick to black metal screaming. Like I occasionally kind of like went back to, I guess you could say, my comfort zone and whatnot, but only sparingly. And then of course there's Peter with his vocals, which is almost kind of a more classical tone, heavy metal kind of vocals, and even you like a lot more melodic stuff. So it's kind of cool. Like there's little gems of different stuff in there. Like at one point in time we're hitting you with brutality, and then out of nowhere it'll get super soft with little or no percussion behind it. So that's pretty neat, I think. And one of the songs is a Rainbow cover.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun.
We both love Ronnie James Dio, classic metal. John's a very scholarly metal fan. I like tons of metal too, and Rainbow's just a good fit.
Yeah, it's right. Like that album, that came out kind of around when I guess metal started to become metal, I guess. And I mean, that's wholeheartedly not why we picked the song. I mean, it's a great song, and it came out at a really cool time. But I mean, we wanted to take something, make it our own. And the funny thing is, I thought it was gonna take us we knew we wanted to have a cover on there too, and I thought there was gonna be a lot more debate about it. And I think we may have suggested like one or two other songs before that. And whenever Man on the Silver Mountain came up, it just kind of was like an idea we both didn't hate, and then all of a sudden there was the song, just like a lead into the Thieves song. And the cool thing about it too is, like, even though it's a cover song, it blends perfectly in with the EP. It sounds like a lead into the Thieves song.
Yeah, chordally, sonically, and vocally, we made it our own. It's definitely not a tribute. If you want to hear the same Rainbow song, you won't hear it in ours.
If you want to hear the same Rainbow song, go listen to Rainbow. Do it. One of the songs is called Cages, and the theme behind that, the picture I was trying to paint, I guess you could say. Well, before I get to that, I've lived in Pensacola my whole life. Not that I'm complaining necessarily, but it's after you live somewhere for a long time, you get into a point in your life where things aren't going to change. This is probably where you're going to live for a little while. Like, no matter what you do, this is kind of where you're going to be. All the people you're around, that's who you're going to be around. And it's actually kind of a reoccurring theme on another song on this record too. But for that particular song, it's sort of the darker aspect of that, 'cause that can kind of be a frightening thing when you sort of know you're going to be somewhere for a long time. Obviously he knows what I'm talking about. In this particular, I guess I went really dark with that song, and the picture that's supposed to be painted is somebody accepting their fate that they're going to die somewhere, and not in the kindest of fashions. The theme of that song is a person waking up in some kind of cage. And he's surrounded by all these people that are either marked for death or that have already died. And, usually most of them are like the sinner kind of people, prostitutes, whatever, like some of them have already been dealt with, and he just knows it's a matter of time. He sees it coming, and, there's not much he can do to change it. That's Cages. And then another song on there is called In an Endless Maze, and that's sort of the same inspiration, I guess, just kind of being stuck in a place that you're not going to be leaving for a while, or ever for that matter. And that was a little bit more on the lighter side. It essentially has to do with two people going on a journey together in a land that they're destined to spend all eternity, and they're not really concerned about anybody that can see them or anything like that. They're just going to live their lives point blank. And it sort of becomes the theme of it is them being kind of in like in a maze or wooded area or whatever. That's now their home. This is where they live. This is what they do, and it's in every day is a new adventure kind of thing. And they're making the best out of this new surrounding that they're gonna spend eternity in. So that's In an Endless Maze. Another song on there is called Poisons Made to Please. That's the really long song on the album. That one's probably the most direct one out of all of it. I sort of kind of took a recap of my life from when I was 17 up until a few years ago. Just kind of being one of those guys that was more into being rebellious, I guess. Wasn't necessarily trying to do too much to better my life or whatever. I like not that I'm saying FY that living the rock and roll heavy metal life is bad or anything like that. That's definitely not the message at all. But I mean, it sort of went from like, you know, sort of being a little bit more focused with it, and then being a little bit more unfocused with it, and kind of like, you know, reaping into the spoils that come with sometimes living this kind of a lifestyle. And sometimes those spoils aren't always the healthiest thing in the world in large doses. So that's sort of Poisons Made to Please. I mean, I think once you read the lyrics and, you know, that song title, I'd say it almost speaks for itself. And then the last song is a song called All That's Left. Excuse me, All That's Left Behind. And that was actually the first set of lyrics I wrote for this, and that was probably the funnest one too, because I took an incident that happened in my past that was relatively unpleasant, and I turned it into a really cool ghost story. It barely has anything to do with my life. It was semi-inspired by it. The song itself is basically about a person that has inherited a home, and they get there and they can sense that something terrible had happened there. And in the song you find out that basically two people had a complete breakdown in front of their child, and basically killed themselves. And this person and they're still there to haunt whoever steps foot in that house. And that's pretty much that song. And that was really fun to write. It almost made me thought I'd be really good at writing a script for a horror movie one day.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe after heavy metal and being an internet podcast talk show host doesn't work out, then move on to
other things.
Move on to writing B horror movies or something.
It's probably not what you would think. Like, I took a lot of the ideas of, say, Emperor, Burzum, even some of the modern stuff, Liturgy, Black Dahlia Murder, things like that, but I put my own chordal textures on that, which are not like any of those bands that I just listed, and are more like the Cure, some of the Iron Maiden stuff, even things like Depeche Mode, Brand New, all the way to Portugal the Man, stuff you can play on an acoustic. Even down to surf music. So it's kind of an odd.
The heavy metal mutt.
Yeah, it is an odd heavy metal mutt. But the consistent theme running through it is black metal.
Yeah, that's definitely it. Influence for me, screaming. Like, regardless of what the project is, it doesn't really seem to change very, very much. But some influence it more than others. As a vocalist myself, there's been tons of guys I've always kind of taken a nod to, regardless of what people's opinion is on them. Tam Lambesis from As Lay Dying is somebody I've managed to kind of go back to a lot. George Corpse Grinder Fisher from Cannibal Corpse. You know, whenever I'm wanting to kind of like pull out death metal parts, that's sort of like the guy I always sort of look to. Shargoth from Dimmu Borgir. He's probably one of my favorite black metal vocalists. I've got several of them out there, but he's definitely one of them. Ever since I first got into black metal, he was like kind of like, especially his more MIDI kind of stuff, like that he doesn't really use a lot of effects on. Like, I really like that a lot. And I mean, you know, a lot of my roots are in the more kind of like modern day metal bands, like Lamb of God, Hatebreed, Unearthed, stuff like that. So I mean, but like death metal and black metal and stuff like that is no stranger to me, though, and it's slightly dipping my toe outside of my comfort zone, and I guess sometimes that makes for a cool performance when, like, especially for this particular project, because essentially to get the vocals done, we had one weekend. It had to pretty much be done this weekend, and
Had to be done.
and so it kind of, I mean, I think it kind of, you can kind of hear the urgency of that a little bit on the record, because, you know, one weekend, you know, 2 days, 5 songs, that's a lot of screaming in 2 days, and it's, you know, songs that I'm familiar with, but I'm not that familiar with. I haven't been playing them, you know, I've never played them live, you know, outside of, you know, listening to them on my headphones at my house, and, you know, occasionally, like, you know, cranking it up on my stereo system and trying to scream along to that. This is pretty much the first time I've ever gotten to really sing them, so, like, I think it's captured kind of an interesting performance out of that. So, you know, those like a lot of those influences I just kind of listed off, you know, like those it was really easy for me to, like, kind of not, you know, to give a nod to those guys or whatever, because it's kind of what makes up me as a vocalist or whatever. And I like, as we were recording the vocals, I remember, like, me and Peter, like, almost discussing it a little bit, like oh, that's cool, like, this reminds me of something this person would do or whatever, but it's coming from me, not them, and that's fun. I think that's pretty cool. So.
The urgency of time has definitely played a part in this. For instance, even though I'm out of prison now, I may have to go back, as my sentence was just vacated and it didn't go away. So by the time all this goes up right now, I could easily be back there, not for anything new, but just because things haven't gone away. So we really had to act fast and get this done.
When him and I pretty much circled this weekend, it was, you know, no time for nonsense. We get here, we get this done, you know, and it's like you know, leading up to it, I was starting to worry a little bit. I almost kind of wondered if maybe we might have we might be pushing this. And I even remember telling my girlfriend before I left her, I said, part of me's not going to be, like, too terribly shocked if we don't finish this whole thing, and I'm gonna have to end up taking another weekend off one day to come down here. But I'm glad it didn't come to that, and I think, and like I said, it's cool because it gives the album some spunk. You know what I mean? Like, like I said, I think you can hear the urgency of it on there or whatever, and I mean that in a good way. It, like, not that it sounds rushed or anything like that. Like, one of the cool things about the, you know, it being a black metal album or black metalish album is that, yeah, a lot of black metal, even in, you know, in its old Norwegian days, kind of had an agonizing sort of, or, well, it definitely had, like, an agonizing kind of presence to it, and this is just a different kind of that, you know, like, it's I definitely think you can feel it on there or whatever, because, like, you know, I mean, I don't care who you are, you spend, you know, all, you know, 7-8 hours screaming, you're gonna hear it one way or another and feel it, for that matter. And I definitely think you can feel it on this. I'm proud of it. I'm super fucking proud of it.
Yeah, and I would say that we relate to a lot of black metal ideals. Maybe not ideals, but
yeah, I don't plan on burning a church anytime soon.
None of that. But just, you know, black metal was a response of people that were generally isolated. People, you know, a lot of maybe only children, you know, a lot of people under pressure from their environment, through their beliefs and whatnot, and me and John certainly fit into that.
Yeah, I was like, I think a lot, most of it thanks largely to this guy over here, but I was able to discover most of the black metal I first started listening to. Like, I mean, first black metal I ever heard was like Cradle of Filth and Demu. Those are like, I was 15 years old, I guess, when I first started getting into black metal, maybe a little bit younger. And so those two are usually the first two at you know, when you're during that time, if you're just discovering, those are probably the first two bands you're gonna come across. But this guy, like Peter, was kind of the one that turned me, like, at that age especially, which is a really impressionable age to be discovering new kinds of music, let alone, like, you know, Norwegian black metal and whatnot.
Like when you, that one time you were heartbroken, and I said, "It's okay, man. Here's Emperor's Anthems to the Welcome at Dusk. Just listen to this. It's gonna go away."
super positive album to listen to. But yeah, like that album right there, like that was that, like, I mean, if you were to put a gun to my head and, you know, list like 10 of my favorite albums, that'd be one of them. Like, that was a big game changer for me. And I mean, black metal in general was a big game changer, but that was kind of one of those CDs where, you know, I got it. Like, I got it immediately. I could feel it. It was. I've always wanted to be able to release a record one day that lives up to that kind of standard that those guys set. Where, like, it's not just the music that's good. The way it sounds is really cool, because it's not like perfect production, but it's not shit like, you know, some old black metal records and stuff like that. And like, it just has its own sound to it, you know. And
but it's not so polished.
Yeah,
it's the right balance.
It's the right. It's and good and it just has its own sound or whatever, you know. Like, I think it's a pretty unique record. Like they were kind of first. I mean, you know, I'm not that I'm dogging like old black metal that has like the bad production. There's still something about those records that still is neat, you know. I mean, listen to some of those old Mayhem recordings, and it's just like, I don't think I want to hear that polished, you know. I think it sounds fine the way it is.
Wouldn't sound good polished.
Like, I mean, it's almost like when you hear live recordings of like some of the, like those really old Mayhem songs, it's just like, that sounds too good to be, you know, pure fucking Armageddon or something like that. Like, and then I mean, so I mean, you know, like Peter kind of steered me in that direction when it came to like Emperor and Mayhem and the really apocalyptic, you know, ferocious kind of black metal. I was like, especially in my like late teens, early 20s, I was really into stuff like that, like Marduk, Gorgoroth, and Dark Funeral, especially. Like those bands like that, I was really hooked on that for a long time, and just kind of and you know, over the years, like I've really gotten in, obviously, to the new wave, I guess, of black metal that's come out. Like, there's a lot of really cool ones out there. Abigail Williams, I think, does some cool stuff. I really like Death Heaven a lot. I mean, I think that kind of goes without saying for most people that listen to black metal nowadays. Great band.
Or you're either on one side or the other.
Yeah. Either.
If you're against them, you're wrong.
Yeah,
same with like, you know, Vatnet Viscar.
Yeah, they're really good too. Obviously, I currently play with another band, Rainey's Revenge. I play live with them, and been with them for over 5.5 years now, which is crazy to think about. The one thing I've some people are okay with doing more than one band or more than one project. I know a lot of people that do them, and I think that's fine. Like, but especially nowadays, I've always just been kind of, if I'm ever gonna do another musical project, I don't want it to sound anything like what I'm already currently doing. Definitely accomplished with Legion and the Thieves. Rainey's Revenge and Legion and the Thieves are barely in the same book. Definitely not the same chapter. Like, it's, you know, I mean, in the book of heavy metal, like Legion and the Thieves and Rainey's Revenge are on two separate sides of the story. So, I mean, I don't doubt that Rainey's Revenge fans could like Legion and the Thieves, and I don't doubt that Legion and the Thieves fans could like Rainey's Revenge. It's still metal. They're both metal. They're just both two different kinds of metal. Like, there's almost no black metal influence whatsoever in Rainey's Revenge's music, where there's a lot of it in Legion and the Thieves. Legion and the Thieves also has a lot of melody. Rainey's Revenge doesn't have that much, at least not this kind of melody. Um, but it's funny though. I mean, that me and Peter putting this album out because we've done so much. It feels weird that this is coming out now but we've done so much music in the past, but not much of it has been a band of him and I. Like back in 2007, that was technically when the first Legion and the Thieves album came out, and it was recorded just like this. Peter wrote a bunch of songs. I mean, we did it strictly for fun. Back then, Peter was playing in a band called Dearest Azazel, and I was fronting a band called Baron His Daughter that was like a I don't know, like a kind of rock influenced hardcore band, I guess. And so both of them were pretty far from black metal. Like Dearest Azazel, like I'm like it's kind of like pop dance rock.
Yeah.
So I mean, both of them were pretty far from black metal, and I guess for both of us to scratch our extreme metal itch, Peter wrote these like 4 songs. I think it was 4 songs that were like just ridiculously heavy. Like some of the later Emperor stuff met with like what Behemoth sounded like at that time, sort of more leaning towards that era.
With the Machine Gun program.
Yeah, zero
for a drummer.
zero clean vocals. It was all me. Yep. And it came out like violently heavy. He was living in Atlanta at the time. I drove up there, was there for a weekend, and we even saw Behemoth while I was there that weekend. And
oh God.
Yeah, that's right. And like what's funny, it's we made a MySpace page for it. And I even think we entertained the idea of playing a show, and I think that went out the window pretty quickly. But we
couldn't find the right machine gun to play drums.
Yeah, right. We released that on MySpace, and I mean, I don't even like that MySpace page is long gone, and
hope so.
Yeah,
it would be confusing.
It's got to be, and if anyone out there has those songs, I would love to hear them because I do not have them. I don't know what happened to it, so so there was that. You know, when Peter moved back to the area, a year later, the band I was in at that time, Baron His Daughter, he was the producer like a very hands-on producer for that matter with that album. It felt like you were kind of part of it. Well, you even did guest vocals on one song, twice it was 2 songs on that album. It felt like you were part of the band because he was so hands-on with that album, because we wanted him to be. And then I was in a band after that called Drayton Sawyer. It was like just a metalcore band, and he was the producer on the first album that we did, the only one I did with that band. And it was again, really hands-on. And Peter even filled in guitar for us at a show. One of our guitar players broke his thumb
in a fight.
Yeah, in a fight.
Parking lot.
In a fight in a parking lot. So Peter, being the kind guy that he is, stepped in, learned all the parts, played a show with us at the break in Pensacola Beach, and then back in 2010, after I left Drayton, we were gonna start this band Legion and the Thieves up as like a real band though.
We had a drummer, incredible drummer.
Yeah.
And we had a second guitar player.
Yeah.
We were trying to find the right bass player.
Yeah, I mean we had options. I remember that we had a couple people that we had our eye on.
And then I got arrested and was never let out.
And yeah, that's about as much history of this project as I could think of. So hope you enjoy the record.
Yes. Thank you for taking the time to listen to what we've done and watch this. We appreciate it being a part of your lives, and thank you for taking a look at this chapter in ours.